Morning. Learning is chus refuah shlema for Ilan Chai Baserach and Meir Ben Cyril Perel. Um, we're up to Tnan Hossam, I think, about 6 lines down on Yudam and Aleph. Tnan Hossam, Gilul Mashkan Asur Mishum Gili Mayim V'Yayin V'Cholav. This is just a continuation. It's really the end of the last sugya. We talked about how Mayim that was left out is Asur because of a sakana, of a snake getting its poison into the mayim. It's not just mayim, as we see in this Mishnah, that there are three mashkin that are asur if you leave them exposed because of the possibility that it got poison of a snake in it. It's water, wine, and milk. Kama yishuv yasurim. What is the shear that it becomes asur if you leave out a liquid open because we're worried about the snake getting its poison in it? We're going to have Yudam and Aleph 7 lines down. If you leave out one of these liquids in a place where it's open and there's enough time, you leave it out for a long enough time that a snake could get out from a close by place, which Gemara is going to say, meaning directly from underneath the handle of the pitcher. It's literally, it sounds like very short amount of time, and drink from the water or from the milk or whatever it is. That's the amount of time that it's. If you leave it open that long, it's going to become us. So the Gemara become a makar. What does it mean when it says the snake could have come from a nearer place? I'm going to read Rav Yehuda. If it can go from underneath the ear, which is like the handle of the kli, and drink. What do you mean to say that as long as it could have gotten from underneath the handle to the lip of the vessel, that it's going to be also to drink because of the possibility that the snake drank and got some venom into the liquid, but you would, if you waited that long, it was just enough time for it to drink, the snake would still be there when you got back. It wouldn't have had time to get back into hiding. So tomorrow, has to be enough time for it to go out of its hiding place, drink from the water, and then go back to its hiding place. So that when you come back, you don't see it. Obviously, if you'd see it, you know you don't have to, you shouldn't drink from it. But if you leave it open and you don't see anything, it has to be enough time for the snake to come from a hiding place and go back to the hiding place. I guess if you would check under the handle of the kli right afterwards, then that would make it for the next nearest hiding place that it could have gotten back to. Yeah, but it seems like a very short amount of time. Okay. Zakma. Itma. Hashoichet b'saka menimtzas peguma. Someone who shechted with a knife, and prior to shchita, he did the right thing, and he checked, and he made sure there was no pagam, there's no nick in the sakin. If you know this, if you ever been to a shlachtais, they check with their fingernail. They run their fingernail along the edge of the knife to check that there's no nicks. If there's a nick, then what you're doing is you're tearing the simonim instead of slicing them. Right? We have the 5 flaws that will ruin a shechita, and one of them is tearing. You're not allowed to tear the simonim, the veshet and the kana, the windpipe and the food pipe. You have to slice them. So if it has a nick, that's not slicing. So you checked before he started the shechita, but Hashoichet b'saka menimtzas peguma, and then later on, not immediately after the shechita, he found it was a peguma, but later on, because obviously if he found it right afterwards, well, we'll see what we have to assume, but generally we'll assume that it got a pegima from from the animal. When you started slicing in the throat of the animal, there's a little bit of tough leather on it, and maybe you got a nick from that. Even if after doing this shchita, he then used it to break bones a whole day. He used this chalaf, this sakin, to break bones, which is obviously something that's very liable to cause nicks in the knife. Psula, it's going to be possible. Even so, even though we have another way we can attribute it to something that happened after the shechita, it's still going to be possible. Chayshina, shem ba'ar nifkama, because it was still chayshish that after he checked it prior to the shechita, it then, when he did the shechita, the skin or the leather of the animal caused the pagam, and then he did the shechita with a knife that had a pagam in it, and therefore the shechita is possible. Rav Shimon says, no, it's kosher. Shema ba'etzem nifkama. No, if there was bones that were, if he used it on bones, well, we're going to see exactly what the svara is. Is it only if he did afterwards or not? The Chizda says that it could be that a bone broke it after the shechita. Let's see Rashi. No, doesn't say. No Rashi, but l'chayra means that he could. We're going to see what the issue is. In addition to where the bone was used after to break bones afterwards. Even without that, we're going to see that there's a bone in the neck of the animal after the shechita. Sometimes it will impact on that bone in the animal's neck and cause a pagam. So he'll say if you find it that it has a pagam after the shechita, it's still going to be kosher shechita. Rav Huna, we understand. Rav Huna is going from what we had said on the previous blot, right? That Rav Huna says that that was the member of Rav Huna, that he said that an animal is considered has a ches chazaka, that it's aser, right, because of evim minachai, and it remains aser until you prove that it's mutter. El Rav Chizda my timer. Why does Rav Chizda go connected the cheskes iser of the animal and say it's going to be mutter? We're going to assume that the shechita was a good shechita. Amalach etzem vade poigim or sofik poigim sofik loy poigim. The etzem is almost certainly. The vade and the suffix here are used slightly loosely. I found the Rashis finally. Let's see the Rashi. There's no Rashi. Kishmaitze, and this is going back on Rav Huna. So Rashi doesn't say this, but over here, obviously, it's not vadai or etzem vadai paigim, but it's almost certain that it's a very likely event that if you break bones with a knife, that it's going to get a pagam or safek paigim, safek le paigim. But the possibility that the pagima was caused by the leather of the animal prior to the shechita, prior to the cutting of the kana and the vest, avi safek uvadai. So it's a safek whether it happened before, and a vadai or near vadai that it happened afterwards. Ain't safek maitzim midei vadai. You can't say that it's more likely that we're going to say because of the chazaka that the safek is we're going to go with the safek instead of the vadai. Moshev Rava l'siyul Rav Huna. Rava asked a kasha on Rav Chizda. He asked as a riot to Rav Huna. Tava v'Allah. Nimtzal of davar chaytzitz. A person was tamei, and he went into the mikvah. He was, let's say, tamei tumas zach. and he got out of the mikvah, and he found something that was chayt. He had a little, a little bit of cement on him. Even though after his tefillah, he didn't check himself, and he was a bricklayer, and he found at the end of the day there was a little bit of cement on it. Also like tefillah. The tefillah is not going to be a kosher tefillah because of the possibility that the cement was on him before he was toivel. Unless he checked himself and he knew there was no cement on him prior to that. He certainly was toivel, and the question, we're not sure if it went on him or not. We're allowing the suffix of whether he had it on beforehand, and it's being mitzi from the vada that he certainly was toivel. So l'chayra, it's not. This is not like Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda says the suffix cannot be mitzi midei vada. So Gemara, shani hasan the glamema hamet tame achas kasav emeloi tovel. Because you could say he was before he was toivel, he was tame. You want to say that the suffix is moitzi midei vadai, but this suffix is helping a lot. It's on the same side. The suffix of tavel is starting with a chazaka. So maybe we'd say a suffix is moitzi midei vadai when the suffix is going to bolster the chazaka, as opposed to in our case where the suffix is coming away from the chazaka, right? This animal. So Zak to Gemara. Hachanami, but Gemara says, how is that different from our case? Hachanami, haven't behema chazkas, ve'emuloi nishkata. Why don't we say the same thing over here? You want to say that the suffix of whether the chances that it became pogum before the shechita, that's only a suffix. Well, breaking the bones afterwards is a vada. So we're saying, according to Rav Huna, we're saying that we're chayshish for the suffix. And we're saying, but there's no chazaka, but there is a chazaka. It's a chazaka that the behema was not kosher to eat before the shechita. So you want to say that the shechita is a valid shechita? Let's say that this suffix is bolstering a chazaka of that it wasn't shachat beforehand. So how is it any different than that? Why are you asking this as a kasha on Rav Huna? And a raya to Rav Chizda, Rav Huna will tell you it's really the same case. It's in both cases you have a suffix, and the suffix is going along with the chazaka. Just like over there, it's a chazaka that it was tamei. Over here, it's a chazaka that it wasn't shachat beforehand. So tomorrow, that's not true. Right now, you look at the behemoth, it's definitely a shchuta. You're trying to say whether the shchita was a kosher or shchita or not. But he has a shchita. Zok to Gemara. In fact, Gemara, so if you're going to say that the shchita, we're taking recognition of the shchita. We're not saying he has a chazak of not being shachat, because now it has a shchita. So this person also was toivel. You're trying to say whether the tefillah was a kosher tefillah. So we're also trying to say whether the shchita was a valid shchita. So if you're going to say that there's no chazaka that he was not shachat, then we should have said in that brayso that you're trying to bring as a raya that it doesn't have a chazaka that he wasn't tavel, that he was tamei. Say that he was toivel, because this chazaka is no longer valid. Zok Gemara. Gemara says no, you can't say the tevel, the tvila makes it not that a chazaka that he's not tamei, because we know that there was a davar chaytzitz. And the question is just when that happened. So there is a flaw in that tefillah. So you can't say that he has a chazaka, the chazaka is gone because he had a tefillah. Maybe the tefillah is no good. The Gemara says again, we're going in circles here. You basically keep on making this taina, but you have the same problem with the shchita. You're trying to say that it's considered a shchuta, and therefore it doesn't have a chazaka of being a non-shachat animal because there's a reisa, but there's a by the tefillah, but there's also a reisa in the sakin. You're trying to say that it's considered that it's shchuta, and therefore there's no. You want to say that there's no prior chazaka, or I'm sorry, there is a chazaka of that it should be considered that it should have a reisa because we know that there was a pagam in the sakin. There's an inherent difference in the reisa of the sakin from the reisa in the tefillah. Sakin is roi, behema lo yisroi. By the sakin, the problem is in the knife. You look at the animal has a shchita. So we could say that's chazaka. There's no prior chazaka that it's that it's not a shachat. It's because it's shachat. You say there's a pagam in the knife that we have to account for, so that should destroy the chazaka. That's an external factor. The sakin is not part of the animal. So you're saying that maybe there's something outside that will ruin this shchita, but the shchita happened. Maybe there's an external force. Masha'enke by the tefillah, the chatzitza is on the person. So that taka ruins the prior. Over there, the chazaka is destroyed. So that's the reason why over there the tefillah would be no good. But the gabi, the shchita, the pagam was external, and therefore it wouldn't take away the chazaka. So he remains a chazaka of shchuta, and therefore that's why the suffix can't impact the current status of the shchita. So it's not a raya to Rav Huna. It's not a raya like Rav Huna. It could be like Rav Chizda that by the shchita it's going to be considered a good shchita because there is a chazak. Meisvei, Fractor Gemara. Again, we're trying to bring l'chayr. We still have a raya. We're trying to again resurrect the raya to Rav Huna. Shachat is a veshet. If he shechted the veshet, which is one of the simanim of a oif. By an oif, we've been talking until now about a behema. By a behema, you have to shech both the veshet and the kana, the two simanim, the windpipe and the food pipe. By a bird, you just have to do roiv of one of the two simanim for it to be a kosher shchita. So he shechted the veshet of the oif. So that's already a kosher shchita. V'ach kach nishmata hagargeres. The veshet is the windpipe, and then afterwards the gargeres slipped out of its place. I think it's a food pipe. Slipped out of its place, which is not by the shchita, but through some other force. And that makes the animal into a treifa. Kshera, the animal is kosher. If an animal becomes a treifa after you shecht it, obviously that's not a problem. When you're cutting up an animal, it's not going to survive that. Once it has a kosher shchita, whatever mutilation you do, or you cause the animal's lifespan to be shortened, it's already dead, so it's not relevant. However, nishmata hagargeres, if you first slipped the food pipe out of its place, and afterwards you shecht the windpipe, psula, then the animal was a treifa before the shchita, and therefore it's going to be possible. Shachat es haveshet, if you shecht the veshet, nimsa hagargeres shemuta, and then afterwards you don't see that it slipped out afterwards, but you find that it's out of place. But you don't know if it happened before the shchita or afterwards. This is such an incident happened. Kol safek b'shchita apostle. We said whenever there's a suffix in the shechita, it's going to be possible. We're gonna have to worry about that. Maybe this sliding of the food pipe out of place happened prior to the shechita, so we don't know if it's a kosher shechita, and therefore it's going to be possible. So what does it mean? When we just say it's possible, what does it mean? Kol suffix shechita lasuye mai. What does that come to include? Lav lasuye kai gavna. Is it not talking about the case where not just where we don't know, but even if we find it afterwards, right? Really the same case as the case over there, and you don't know if it happened before or if it happened after the shechita. So l'chayra, this is not like Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda said by us where we find the pagam afterwards, and we have what to be toilet in afterwards. We say we go basa the vadai and not after the suffix that maybe it happened before. So I want to know that's not what kol suffix b'shkita possible. Lasui suffix shachet suffix dars, where a shaychet has a suffix of whether he himself has a suffix not about something that we find later on. It's where the shaychet himself is not sure if he did shia, like we said, if that's the first psul of a shchita, that he might have waited, he might have stopped the middle of the shchita, which is possible, or shafik daras, where instead of slicing, he pushed the knife onto the siman, which is also possible. But maybe legabi the knife, like we said, the knife is an external factor, and therefore we would go with the chazaka that this animal is a shchuta in front of us. If there's a suffix in the shechita itself, whether it was done properly, that's in the sheichet himself. So then you can't say it's a chazaka of a shchuta. But on the knife, like Rav Chizul is machalik, we would say it has a chazaka. Then the chazaka of shchuta would still apply. In fact, the Gemara Maishna, what's the chiluk? Like we just said, Hasam. In the case over there, the reason why we say it's going to be the shechita is going to be possible. It's yaldabar reyes of a. We don't know whether the shechita itself was done properly with drisa with shia, but hacha sakin reyes of behema lo yisrael. There's a chiluk that since the reyes happened in the sakin, that's external. So therefore, the animal will still continue to have a cheskes. Saktamar, the helchas agavasa der Huna kishaloi shiba ba'etzem. The halacha is like Rav Huna that if you find a nick later in the knife where you did not go and break, break bones. Use this knife as a bone breaker, which is likely to cause a pagam in the knife. So then we say like Rav Huna, we find a nick later on, and there's not something that's a vaday afterwards that we could say that they caused the pagam, but rather it could have just as likely happened before as afterwards. Then we'll say in a chanami we have to assume that the pagam happened before from the leather. But the halach is like Rav Chisda when he broke the etzim, which sounds like we're passing like Rav Chisda essentially from the way that the original question was phrased. Right, the original question was phrased that he shechted an animal, then he broke atzamas. That was saying the halach in that case is going to be like Rav Chisda. Zak Gemara, from the way we're saying the psak machlad Rav Chisda, I forgot the loishi beretz. From the fact we're saying that the halacha is like Rav Chisda, where he broke bones, Vaistais, that Rav Chisda would be chaylik and say that it's going to be kosher, even if you checked the knife, there was no pagam in it, then he shechted the animal, and we found the pagam afterwards, that we're going to say, according to Rav Chisda, it's kosher. Because we're saying we passed like him when it broke out something. Mashma, We don't pass like him when it didn't break. Vice says that's what he holds. El b'mayivkum. So if he did the shchita and he didn't break bones with it afterwards, what broke it other than the skin prior to the shchita? So Gemara, Ema be'etzem the mafrakas ifkim. Maybe no, there's a bone in the neck that sometimes when you're pulling out the knife, it would hit that bone, even though he didn't use it specifically to break bones. There is a possibility that there's a bone that it could hit after the shechita. So that's what Rav Chisda would say. He would be tailored in that bone. So the way we had originally phrased the machlekes, Rav Huna and Rav Chisda, according to this, was really for the benefit of Rav Huna. We're saying Rav Huna would say, even if he broke bones the whole day, it's still going to be possible. But Rav Chisda would not need that to make it kosher. Even if he didn't break bones the whole day, it would still be kosher because there's bone in the neck of the animal. Hava Uvda. There was a case with somebody, what does Rashi say? No, it doesn't say. But Hava Uvda, V'tar of Rabbi Yosef at Chleiser Chayusa. There was a case where someone shechted 13 animals, one after the other, and he didn't check the chalaf in between them. And Rabbi Yosef said all 13, up to 13 of them, are all treifus, because they found a pagam in the knife afterwards. Kaman, Kravuna, Vafil B'kamaisi. L'chayr, it's saying that all 13 are going to become possible, because according to Rav Huna, we would say, listen, by the other ones, even Rav Chisda, the last 12, Rav Chisda would also agree that they're possible, because he would be tailet. If you find a nick afterwards, you have to be tailet in the neck bone at the end of the shechita. So once you've shechted one, and you find later on that there's a pagam, you would assume that it happened from the neck bone after the first shechita. But according to Rav Huna, he would say it happened from the leather of the neck of the animal, from the hide of the animal. So that would be even possibly the other. So we're saying ad tleiser, chiyusa. It means that he did all 13, according to Rav Huna, would be possible. So I want to like Rav Chisda. Ulabar mikamaisi. No, it means like Rav Chisda, and we're excluding the first one. I guess it doesn't. It's very hard to understand that maybe we're talking about when there were 14, and we're excluding the 13. We're excluding the next 13, not the first one. It doesn't say in the case that it's talking about where he did 13 or 14. Or you could say that it has to be like Rav Huna. The Ikar of Chisda, Mechti, Mitla Talina Mimai. According to Rav Chisda, why do we say it's that the first one is going to be kosher? That's a mafrakas, the kamaisa ifkin. Because we say it happened on the bone in the neck of the animal after the shechita. Why do we assume it happened by the first one? We didn't check it between when you started till after you finished all the shechita. So maybe it happened on the very last one, and none of them are possible. Amalei Rav Acha Brei the Rav Rav Ashi. Rav Huna Matra B'Digusa Ben Chada B'Chada. Rav Kahana holds that you have to check the animal between each shechita. Kaman, who is this like? Rav Huna. The reason why he requires it, because according to Rav Huna, you have to do it, you have to check it, because otherwise, that if you check it, because otherwise the first one would be kosher. Right? According to Rav Huna, it would always be possible. If you find everything would be possible. If you find a nick in it, so we say check it that way as you go along. Each one will be kosher. So I like Rav Chisda Lachshura Basraisa. No, it could be he's saying you have to check each one because we want to do all 13 should be kosher. It doesn't have to be necessarily. We're saying according to Rav Huna, and to say that otherwise I would have said that from the first one is possible. You find at the end, and we're trying to be machsher that first one that would otherwise that first one that would have been kosher. You check it to make sure that it's not really possible. The Gemara says no. Maybe he's saying that you have to check it according to Chisda for the other 12 or the other 13 to say to be machsher. So Gemara ihachi. If that's the case, if you're doing it to be machshir all the animals, the rule is that it's not enough to have as we're going to see, you're not supposed to have the shaychet to check the knife before shkita. You're supposed to have, if you're worrying about this, the bedika prior to the shkita, you have to have the rabbi of the city has to check the knife. The Gemara is assuming at this point that if you don't have the rabbi of the city check the knife, it's going to be a pasul shkita. But if we're saying that we're trying to allow the shkita of the other animals by checking the knife before their shkita, you should need a chacham for that. No, you don't really need the chacham to check the knife before the shkita. You can even have the shechet check it. Because it's he's an eidach and he's nem bisur. So Mara Yihachi Mikara Namiloi. If that's the case, why? If that's the case that eidach is nem bisur, why do you need the chatchila to have the chacham check it? He says no. The reason why you use the chacham is not because otherwise it's not going to be good. But it's a matter of covet for the chacham, but if you didn't do so, it would still be kosher. Where does this come from? This whole rule that we've been talking about, right? This is all dependent on the svara that we say the animal remains in its chazaka. We're determining what the chazaka is. Do we say it's a chazaka that it was not kosher before the shchita? Or do we say we look at the chazaka that now it's a shchuta? But it's all dependent on the svara of chazaka, which is throughout Shas, right? We always talk about chazakas in Shas, that we go basa the chazaka. Where do we know we follow a chazaka? Amar Shulban Achmeni or Rabbi Yonus. Amar Kravi Yotza Koyim Rabayis Al Pesach Habayis Biskoris Habayis Shivish Yom. It says when a kohen checks a house that has a nega tzaras in it, it says after he checks the house and he finds a tzaras of a sufficient size, he leaves the house, El Pesach Habayis, he goes to the entrance of the house and he closes up the house for 7 days. And then he goes and he checks it after 7 days. Correct Gemara, but if this is all part, the Torah says he has to go and close up the house behind him. Dilma adenafik ve'etzei batzalei shiura. He has to check before he goes up and closes the house for the second check. He has to make sure that the tzaras on the wall of the house is a sufficient size to ask. But maybe between the time he looked at the nega and the time that he left the house, he exited the door of the house, the tzaras got smaller. So now it's only a suffix whether there was a actual tzaras that would be aser, and he wasn't able to do the test. In addition to there being a tzaras, when he sees it, there has to be a tzaras. The Torah says he has to leave the house and close the door behind him. So it means at all points in this procedure of leaving the house, it has to be a tzaras, but he doesn't know. He already left that. He already left that tzaras. He can't see what it is. It must be because there was a tzaras when he turned around to go out of the house. When he leaves the door, you can assume it was also there. That's the right. Maybe he backs out of the house and keeps an eye on the tzaras. That's not an eitzah. We still have you're trying to ruin our raya, the chazaka works. There's two answers there. Chada, the Yitzia derech achayrev lo yishma Yitzia. One is because going backwards is not considered going out. The Torah says he has to be yotzim and abayis. Going out in a backwards way is not accomplishing this in the proper way. If the tzaras is on the back of the door, I wouldn't have really thought it's on the back of the door, but that's the way I've seen other people. I would understand Rashi to mean that as he's closing the door intercedes, so you can't see what's in between him, and the door gets in between, and he can't see it. But the way they explain it is that it means that it's literally on the back of the door, so you won't be able to see it as he's closing the door. So, Michael, what are you going to talk about? How's he going to do it in that case? The pasuk bei kavasa, if you'll say he'll make a little hole in the door so you can keep an eye on the tzaras. I don't see how that helps if it's on the back of the door. It just doesn't, the physics of it don't work. Unless he has like one of those little mirrors on a stick that he sticks into the window. I don't think that's what it's talking about. But if it's like what I said, that it's just back of the door, that the door itself gets in the way, it makes a hole so you could see through the door to where it is. But Tanan, base FL and Poison one cannot make in a dark house. We said that the kohen has to see the tzaras, and we say you can't make you have to be able to see it without, like we said, you can't use that mirror on a stick. You can't use a flashlight either. It has to be that you can see through natural light. You can't make a special window to be able to see it, because that's not regular real. So yes, on this, you're saying that the reason there's no raya of chazaka because there must be a raya of chazaka because he couldn't have done it derech achayrev, where he could still see it. So he must use chazaka. Because derech achayrev, we said, was not considered a valid yitzia for the riyas tzaras. So that's the case. What about the kohen gadol yom kippur, the sibei yitzia, that the kohen has to go out of the kachri kashim? Rashi said, the pasuk says, "Rochetz b'sar b'mayim b'makom kadosh l'shem gadav v'yatzav asa said losav v'saylas ha'am hidu adabara ha'am." Says v'yatzav asa say losav. Utznan yatzav b'alei derech knisasei. When the kohen goes out of the kashri kashim, he goes backwards, and we call that yitzia. So why are we saying over here it's not a valid yitzia? So tomorrow, I'm sorry, I lost my schleif. Tomorrow, the ka'amrit base awful and poison by chaloina. It's another shadow. You said you can't make an opening in the door because that's not called a re'iyah. Lyra says nagai. Hani mila hechadalei is chazik. That's where we don't have a chazak. Aval hechad is chazik. But once you have already, you saw that you're saying you can't make a window to look at it because that's not a real re'iyah. But he already had the re'iyah. He already saw the nega. Now he's just trying to keep the nega in sight. So that how could the later on taking out a window? Why are you saying that that's not considered a re'iyah? You already saw it before. Well, you know what? It's getting too late. We're gonna have to finish this off tomorrow. That's Hashem. I'm on Zoom.